My entitled stepdaughter stole money from me, so I issued an ultimatum to my husband: kick her out or divorce. From the day I moved into my husband's house, my stepdaughter has despised me for no reason. A prime example being when I wouldn't give her $120 for the hair salon, she literally went through my wallet and stole the money. A week after that happened, I told my husband I was done with him enabling her. I explained she is 22, doesn't pay rent, doesn't work, or go to college. He interrupted to defend her, and I brought up the hair salon incident, and especially how when he found out about it, he didn't even say anything to her. He went silent, and that's when I gave him an ultimatum. Either she leaves the house, or we are getting a divorce. I can't kick my daughter out, I'm sorry, was his response. He walked out, and I genuinely could not believe it. I loved my husband so much, and truthfully, the ultimatum was not something I was ready to commit to just yet. I wanted to at least talk to him first about it, and so that's what I did. Benjamin and I had many arguments about it. He would say she was young and needed time to figure things out, but it was clear she wasn't even trying to figure it out. Lisa had always been a bit spoiled. When I first met her, she was just 15 living with her mother. Benjamin and I had just started dating, and I really wanted to make a good impression. On our first meeting, she demanded a new iPhone from him because hers was so last year, and all of her friends had the newest iPhone. Benjamin laughed it off, but I could see the pattern then. She always got what she wanted. Her mother spoiled her, giving her everything without question. As the years went by, Lisa's demands only grew. She expected everything to be handed to her on a silver platter. In high school, she refused to work a part-time job, insisting that studying was her job. But her grades didn't reflect that. She spent more time shopping and hanging out with friends than studying. Her mother and Benjamin always made excuses for her, saying she was finding herself. Fast forward to now, it seems like she has comfortably settled into live off the back of her father and I. The next few days after I gave the ultimatum were unbearable to say the least. Lisa found out about what I said, and the ultimatum I gave her dad. She slammed doors, made snide comments, and went out of her way to make life miserable for me. Benjamin tried to mediate, but it was clear he was struggling to keep the peace. After a hard day at work, I was greeted by loud music blaring from the living room. It was Lisa's. I asked her politely if she could turn it down and she didn't respond. She kept the volume obnoxiously high. I walked into the living room to find Lisa sitting on the couch, surrounded by snacks and empty soda cans. She was scrolling on her phone. I asked her again if she could turn it down, and she apologized with a smirk and said she didn't hear me. She took her sweet time grabbing the remote and turning down the volume by a notch. The music was still piercing loud. I let it go and went to the kitchen to make dinner, and I found dirty dishes piled high in the sink and crumbs all over the countertops. I called Lisa in there and asked her why she didn't clean up after herself, and she said she was going to do it later. My patience was running thin. I asked her before I left that morning to clean up before I got home, and she told me if I weren't so uptight all the time, things would be easier around here. I blew up on her. I told her that it wasn't about just doing the dishes. I wanted a clean home and respect. I said she doesn't care about anyone but herself. She screamed at me and told me that I thought that I was perfect and was controlling. She ended with, maybe that's why dad doesn't really love you. She said that if he really did, he would have chosen me over her in the beginning when I gave him the ultimatum. She said that she truly had his love. That evening when Benjamin got home, I immediately went up to him and handed him divorce papers. He looked shocked and his eyes filled with tears. He begged me not to follow through with the divorce. I told him that I'd given him and Lisa chance after chance, and the disrespect that I faced that day was my final straw. I told him that the only thing that could make me stay was him choosing me to stay over Lisa. Once he realized I was serious and that he would lose me forever, he told Lisa to leave. The conversation was tense. It looked like it hurt him to tell her, and just as I thought the nightmare was over, Lisa refused to leave. She claimed she had nowhere to go, but I stood my ground and gave Benjamin a week to decide. The week was painful, and just when I thought things couldn't get worse, they did. Benjamin was caught in the middle, torn between his love for me and his responsibility to his daughter. It hurt to see Benjamin struggle with the decision to kick out his daughter, but I knew what needed to be done. Finally, Benjamin made his choice. He told Lisa she had to leave. She stormed out, but before she left, she threatened us and said that we would regret ever kicking her out. I felt a mixture of relief and guilt, but Lisa leaving was only the beginning of the chaos. Within days, I started hearing rumors about Benjamin. Lisa told everyone that Benjamin was having an affair with a coworker. The gossip reached me, and I confronted Benjamin. When I heard the news, I felt my heart in my throat. I asked him if it was true as soon as he got home from work. He seemed hurt that I would ask him that. I could tell that he didn't feel like I trusted him. He reassured me that he would never do that to me, and that it was all lies. He showed me his phone, and the messages between him and his coworker were strictly business. Next, he also proved that the previous nights he wasn't with anyone else but me. I sat there with egg on my face. Even after he proved he was innocent, I felt the trust between us was shattered. Benjamin told me that if I believed the lies, maybe our marriage wouldn't survive. His words cut deep, and I was left feeling more alone than ever, but I chose to stay with him. I hoped to rebuild our relationship. I loved Benjamin and couldn't see myself with anyone else. But just a few weeks later, I came home to find Lisa back in the house. Benjamin told me she promised to change, and he couldn't turn her away. I felt even more betrayed. She had snaked her way back into our house, and I could tell she was trying to divide us so she could get her way. I knew that she had him wrapped around her finger. I didn't know how long I could survive, knowing the cycle of her manipulation would never end. The final straw came when I found out Lisa was spreading more lies, this time about me. I was walking outside to my mailbox, where I saw my neighbor. She was a sweet old lady and greeted me every day. When I waved at her and smiled like we normally do, she just looked back at me and shook her head. She quickly headed back into the house. That was weird behavior from her, but I figured she was going through something at first, until that same interaction happened the next few days. One day I went over to my neighbor's house, and as she opened the door, she looked disappointed. I asked her why she was so distant lately, and she told me that she knew what I'd done. I was confused. I didn't do anything. I asked her to explain, and she lowered her voice and said that she knew I was stealing people's money orders out of their mailboxes around the neighborhood. I asked her who told her this, and lo and behold, it was Lisa. She had been spreading rumors about me to the entire neighborhood, and now, no one trusted me. I was heated. I explained to what was going on, and how it was just retaliation for her having to find a new place to live. She looked like she halfway believed me, and I left. My blood boiled. This girl caused problems in my home and outside of it. She told anyone who would listen that I was the villain, painting herself as the victim. I felt trapped, unsupported, and utterly defeated. It was then that I knew I had to leave for my own sanity. I proceeded with the divorce. My heart broke as I walked away from the life I had built with Benjamin. He watched our marriage fall apart. He was torn between his love for me and his duty as a father, and I was not about to get in the way of that. I left, feeling a mix of relief and sadness. Starting a new life was intimidating, but I knew it was the right choice. Free from the chaos, I chose peace. Benjamin and Lisa continued their destructive dance. She kept him wrapped around his finger, and I could see his life spiraling. I was just happy that I left before it was too late. The first weeks of my new life were difficult. The whole situation took a toll on my mental, but I was determined to start a better life for myself. I rented a small apartment on the other side of town. Every evening, I would sit on my tiny balcony, sipping tea and watching the sunset. This new routine brought brought me a sense of calm, but despite the newfound peace, the nights were the hardest. I would lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying the events that led me here, the hurt, the betrayal, and the sense of loss. I focused on my job to distract from the pain. My colleagues noticed a change in me, but I kept my personal life private. Slowly, I began to rebuild my confidence. Meanwhile, life for Benjamin and Lisa was far from perfect. The rumors Lisa had spread about Benjamin's supposed affair continued to circulate. This brought tension to his workplace. His coworkers were cautious and unsure of what to believe. Benjamin found himself isolated. He struggled to maintain his professional relationships. At home, things were even worse. Lisa's promises to change had been empty. She continued her entitled behavior, expecting Benjamin to cater to her every whim. She refused to look for a job and spent her days lounging around the house or out with friends. The strain of living with Lisa was taking its toll on Benjamin, and he began to see the impact of his choice. I knew all of this because one evening Benjamin reached out to me. He asked if we could meet for coffee, saying he needed to talk. I agreed. We met at a small cafe. Benjamin's eyes looked tired. He began his apologies and said that he could see now what I was trying to tell him. He admitted that he should have listened. At this point, our divorce was final, and I knew that Lisa still had a hold on Benjamin. I said that it was too late for us and that when I needed him to stand by me, he didn't. He said he needed help and that he was actively trying to change things with Lisa. He said he was tired of enabling her. As we talked, I realized that even though I still cared for Benjamin, our relationship had been irreparably damaged. I had to focus on my own healing and building a life that I could enjoy without the constant drama and pain. The weeks turned into months, and I continued to rebuild my life. I made new friends and people who brought positivity and joy into my life. A few years later, I heard a knock on my front door. I looked through the peephole to see Lisa. She looked different, more disheveled than I had ever seen her. When I opened the door, she hesitated, but then told me she needed my help and that she was in trouble. At first, I was taken aback. After everything she had done, I wasn't sure I wanted to help her, but there was a part of me that remembered the young girl who had been caught in the middle of her parents' divorce and who had never been taught to take responsibility for her actions. She explained that she had gotten involved with the wrong crowd and was in debt. Benjamin had refused to bail her out this time. He insisted that she needed to learn from her mistakes. She was scared and didn't know where to turn. Despite everything, I decided to help her, but on my terms. I told her that I would help her, but she had to make some changes. Her days of empty promises were over. She would first have to find a job, start contributing to herself, and stop relying on others to fix her problems. She nodded and said she'd do anything. I helped her pay off her debt and connected her with a job opportunity through one of my friends. It wasn't easy, but over time, Lisa started to change. She found a job, began paying rent, and even started taking classes to finish her degree. Meanwhile, Benjamin and I maintained a cordial relationship, but we both knew that our time together had passed. He focused on repairing his relationship with Lisa, and I continued to build my new life. Looking back, I realized that the journey had been painful, but it had also been necessary. I had learned to stand up for myself, prioritize my well-being, and let go of relationships that no longer served me. However, the emotional scars are still there. I'm stronger, wiser, and ready to embrace whatever the future holds.